On this day in history, November 4th, 1842, Abraham Lincoln marries Mary Todd. In 1924, Nellie Taylor Ross elected the first governor in U.S. history. She was the governor of Wyoming. And in 1979, Iranian students stormed the U.S. embassy in Tehran and take Americans hostage. What would later be called the Iranian hostage crisis lasted 444 days and consumed the final year of Jimmy Carter's presidency. Iran released those hostages on January 20th, 1981, just minutes after newly sworn-in President Ronald Reagan finished his inaugural address. President Reagan won the White House by promising peace through strength and committing to rebuild our military. He also embraced new security innovations that his critics attacked as something out of science fiction. Teddy Kennedy may have called it Star Wars, but the reality is that Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative, or SDI, was a masterstroke, putting the Soviet Union on the path to fiscal ruin and the United States on the way to victory in the Cold War. The Strategic Defense Initiative, the subject of today's American Moment.
I call upon the scientific community in our country, those who gave us nuclear weapons, to turn their great talents now to the cause of mankind and world peace.
On March 23, 1983, President Reagan surprised not only the nation, but members of his own cabinet and military by announcing an Oval Office address that the United States would embark on creating an anti-missile system to stop and destroy nuclear-tipped missiles in space. Reagan called the program the Strategic Defense Initiative, or SDI, while his critics quickly dubbed the program Star Wars. Still, the idea gained popular support and played a key role in undermining the Soviet Union and its arms buildup. By 1987, with his own nation facing economic collapse and unable to match the U.S. program, Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev capitulated and signed the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. Within 4 years, the Soviet Empire itself would collapse, ending a Cold War that lasted more than 4 decades. You're watching An American Moment on Newsmax TV.
From history to the here and now and what's ahead, Ed Berliner to tell us what we got coming up on Newsmax Prime tonight.
We will not be using SDI weapons. However, I fear that maybe there are some people who would like to at this stage of the election, right? Let's get to this now. They are the fastest growing segment of the American electorate. They are now a true political force to be reckoned with, and they are considered by many to be the group that wouldn't vote for Donald Trump if you threatened to force feed them a heaping helping of compost. Making that assumption is a mistake. As we all know what the word assumption boils down to, and it's potentially a very wrong supposition being made about Hispanic American voters.
As a member of the Latino community, how can you be voting for Donald Trump? A lot of people can't understand that.
Thank you.
What do you say?
What I say is, look at what you've had these past 8 years. We're talking about Nogales, Arizona, Douglas, Yuma. It's impoverished. These Hispanics have seen nothing but Democratic rule for over 20 years. Impoverished. There's no jobs. The economy, the infrastructure is gone. They're tired of it.
Therein lies the rub with Hispanic voters, those who are tired of what they see as failed policies that have put them into difficult living positions, and those who believe Trump is a fraud, insulting an entire race of people merely seeking to use them as pawns to the presidency. There are both sides. Tonight on Prime, the challenge facing both candidates, specifically Donald Trump, and we'll hear from those who support Donald Trump, Hispanic Americans, with no fear and no regret whatsoever. JD, it is another one of those groups that Trump has got to focus on. He's got to make amends with them, but there are a lot of suppositions being made out there about them, and a lot of them are wrong.
As I've always said, beware the myth of the monolith, the notion that if you have a Hispanic surname, you're instantly going to vote for guys for open borders.
Very true.
Not always the case. Ed, look forward to it tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern on Newsmax Prime. Now, before you and I part ways, we'd like to show you some excerpts of Mr. Trump on the stump in North Carolina.
Hillary created the server to shield her criminal activity and her corrupt pay-for-play scheme, where she sold her office as Secretary of State to donors and special interests. And the FBI has it all. They have it all. They're not allowed to do anything with it because Her protector is the Department of Justice. In other words, she was more interested in keeping her emails a secret than in keeping our classified intelligence a secret. She was more interested in protecting herself than in protecting the people of the United States. Ending this criminal government corruption is one of the most important reasons you have to go out on November 8th and vote, if you haven't already done it. We know Hillary can't be trusted. We've learned that. With America's security, you take a look at her email situation. Can we trust her with our security? She is disqualified for running for president of the United States. She's disqualified. Most dishonest person ever to run for office. You know, when I look at these great admirals and these great generals and these great Medal of Honor recipients behind me, to think of her being their boss? I don't think so. In 5 days, we're going to win the great state of North Carolina, and we are going to win back the White House, believe me. But you have to get out there and you have to vote. You have to vote. Who's going to be voting? Who is going to be voting on Tuesday? Okay, but who's already voted? That's what I thought. You know, we have a movement that this country has never seen. They're writing about it, they're talking about it all over the world, and we want to make sure it happens. Otherwise, to me, not quite the same, right? Not quite the same. We want to get it finished off. So get out there before Tuesday or on Tuesday, and let's finish it off.
Donald Trump last night in Selma, North Carolina, a town of 6,000, the crowd over 15,000. Before we finish off our time together on this Friday, it's back to the phones at 1-877-Newsmax, and we go to New Jersey, to Eatonville to be precise, where George has been waiting patiently. George, got about 1:15. Let's make it count.
Hey, thank you for taking my call. I got two questions for you. One is, if, God forbid, Hillary is elected, can she pardon herself?
According to some legal scholars I know, there is debate about this, but a legal scholar in whom I have a great deal of trust and respect, he says, yes, it is possible for a chief executive to self-pardon. Let me also say, George, I believe that if she wins, and given the headaches this is going to cause for Mr. Obama on his way out the door, I would expect him to pardon not only Hillary, but just about everybody involved in this profound breach of our national security before she would be sworn in. But as I understand it, yes, a president, at least according to the constitutional lawyers I know, a president can self-pardon. Very quickly, your second question. I guess George left us. George, hope you have a great weekend, and thanks for your call from Eatonville, New Jersey, and I hope George and you will join us tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern for Newsmax Prime, because we will have a prestigious political panel. On the left, Ellis Henican; on the right, Bree Payton. They're going to be talking about the election. Also, The View from the great big state of Texas, where the Democrats have been making noise. They may make a move. KLIF talk show host Grant Stinchfield, who covers things in Dallas-Fort Worth, will be with us. And also our good friend who has been battling Christian persecution in the Middle East, Johnny Moore, will be with us. That's tonight, Newsmax Prime at 8 Eastern. I'll look for you then. Stay brave, stay free, stay tuned, and thanks.